A mission to find Naruto and what Koji will do next after Boruto ignores his instructions to create a better future, only to end up destroying everything instead. And yeah, that's pretty much the topic of our discussion for the next 8 minutes or so. But before we get into that, I'm Nim, and please help me fix the algorithm by liking this video. Thank you guys. So yeah, after Boruto's decision to prioritize his friends over having to passively follow Koji's directions, which Koji thought was ideal, but unfortunately Boruto thought it was a bad future. Because in truth, friends and family are everything. Even when compared to his own life, Boruto would rather sacrifice himself than his friends, family, or village. But with all the things that have happened, the fact is that this creates two perspectives. More precisely, the judgment of each fan determines which is actually the better choice, Boruto's decision or even Koji's. But if we are indeed fair in judging every decision between Boruto and Koji, maybe it should be that each of them has the best decision, best in their own perspective. In other words, Koji, who did prepare Sarada to open her eyes wider to the reality, which is the biggest trigger to awaken her power, it will make the future will be something very helpful, especially for Boruto himself, because with the principle and determination of Sarada, who does not want to let Boruto bear the burden alone, this is also the answer to Sarada herself. Because as we know, Sarada has wanted to help Boruto but has been hindered by the limited information and power she has. But let's assume if Yodo doesn't die and Sarada doesn't awaken her powers, this will make Boruto carry his burden even longer alone. So I think Koji's decision will bring an ideal future where in the end Sarada will become a partner with her power to help Boruto achieve a more ideal future, especially to defeat and destroy world threats. But otherwise, Boruto has no choice. In addition to Kawaki's late arrival, if Boruto stays in hiding, then Konohamaru will die, and I'm sure the Togodama Matsuri won't be able to get them, and the mission to save the shinobi who became a tree will most likely fail. But when it comes to what Koji will do next, now that Boruto has decided to act on his own, honestly this is where things get interesting. Especially if you've noticed, there are a few things Koji has deliberately kept from Boruto. What I mean is Himawari. He never told Boruto that his little sister has inherited Kurama within her, but does that directly decrease trust or even raise doubts about Koji? What do you think about this, guys? Then what will Koji's next move be? Realistically, only Masashi Kishimoto can decide how the plot twist unfolds, right? But if I had to assume, Koji's main focus should be on protecting Boruto's life. What I mean is, based on some of the things Koji has already foreseen, he likely won't reveal to Boruto what else might happen in the future. Instead, he'll carefully consider whether or not telling Boruto could endanger the lives of his friends. Another possibility is that Koji will start taking actions to shape the ideal future by giving direct orders to Shikamaru. Right now, Koji can already communicate with Shikamaru without going through Boruto, am I right? On top of that, Koji can also speak directly with Eida now, which means at this point, Koji already has two pawns, Shikamaru and Eida, because fundamentally, Shikamaru is a leader with characteristics somewhat like Danzo. Yeah, maybe not 100%, but at the very least, Shikamaru is more rational and puts the interests of the villagers first, rather than focusing on a few minor shinobi who could end up becoming a bigger threat. And also Aida. Her obsession is only love for Kawaki. So Aida is a cyborg who doesn't really care about things that don't concern her. In other words, they are both people who don't really care about the fate of the shinobi. And in addition to speculating and theorizing about the future rarity of Koji, it is no less important a mission, or rather Jura's desire to eat Naruto, how and what kind of steps Jura will take next. But surely, to avoid falling for nonsense without any real basis, let's start from the moment Jura found out that Boruto had a comrade helping him. In other words, since Jura found out that Boruto had an accomplice, what Jura did was look for the whereabouts of Boruto's partner. Yeah, Code is the person Jura chose to find and track down who Boruto's accomplice really was, who already knew a lot of information about them. But besides Code, Jura also gave instructions or orders to two other divine tree humans, namely Matsuri and Ryu. Because since the beginning of Ryu's awakening, the first thing fans thought that he would go straight to a place where Gaara was sealed. Instead, the first thing he did was carry out a mission to track the whereabouts or location of Boruto and his partner. But because the case and scenario have changed, especially the Matsuri and Ryu have lost, So Jura has now found the real step or mission. In chapter 24, Jura gets new information that Naruto is actually alive. Does that mean that Jura now feels that Naruto's existence is his top priority? Or is the existence or mission of finding Boruto's collaborator Koji much more important? But based on my analysis, Jura has two options, or rather, two soldiers. Yeah. First, Matsuri and Ryu, and second, Code. So basically, after Matsuri and Ryu failed, the mission to track down Boruto's collaborator now falls to Code. In other words, Jura will prioritize Naruto, which means he'll likely set aside any interest in Kashin Koji for now. Especially since Jura is currently short on allies, his two Divine Tree comrades have already been defeated. That leaves only two remaining individuals Jura can use to find Naruto's whereabouts. Now the question is, how will Jura find Naruto? You might assume he'll try to force Kawaki into telling him, but it's not that simple. So is there another way to find out without going through Kawaki? Absolutely, because believe it or not, Aida is the key. So the choice would be either Jura kidnaps Aida and forces her to reveal Naruto's location, or he helps Mamushi capture and consume Aida, so that Mamushi can gain her Senrigan ability, which could be used as a clue to track down Naruto's whereabouts, right? Because if we assume that Jura will force Kawaki and make him say everything, this becomes a complicated situation. Although we know that in the battle between Jura and Kawaki, many thought that Jura was not serious, but Kawaki's strength cannot be underestimated. So the step Jura will take is to utilize the power of Senrigan Aida. And maybe this is also a big reason why Koji warned Aida that Mamushi would move and look for her. As it turns out, Mamushi is looking for Aida not only because Aida is his target, but this is also a solution to Jura's problem of wanting to find Naruto Uzumaki's whereabouts. Even though Shinju's goal is to eat Otsutsuki, but still, they will obey all Jura's orders. After Ryu and Matsuri failed in the first plan, Mamushi becomes the answer for the second. But what do you guys think? Does Mamushi's goal come purely from his own desires? Or is it truly an order from Jura? In this case, I think most of you would agree with me. This isn't just about consuming Aida. It's more about a bigger scenario, one that leads to gaining a powerful ability, or at the very least, a clue about Naruto's whereabouts. But of course, things won't go exactly as we predict. There will always be a plot twist that changes everything. Still, the most reasonable option seems to be that Jura is trying to extract information about Naruto through Aida. And this first step begins with Mamushi's movement. So yeah, if you guys have a theory that makes even more sense, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'm Nim. See you in the next video. Bye-bye. Data bio.